Shake hands. Also,
So
no
here we
countouts,
go.
no
Christopher
romantic noise
Daniels
happening
from
around.
21 years ago. We know Mr. Daniels recently had his last match earlier this year. It was really, really special to see him bring a close to his incredible career. I think it's one of those deals where, timing's everything. And if he would have come along a few years later, don't you think he would have been an even bigger star than he already was, Tony?
Yeah, there's no question. All the kids, I say kids, but all the wrestlers who wrestled on the independent circuit and wrestled in TNA, look at Christopher Daniels as one of the greats.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they all just like, wow, and of course, on a national level, I know he wrestled in WCW. He got hurt. I told him, I said, I've got to see that match. And when he wrestled in WCW, and I guess I called the match, but I didn't remember it. It's because he just that was his shot, and it didn't work out. And but he has become quite the star through, even though not on a WWE or WCW or that level.
And he was unbelievable. I remember watching a lot of wrestling in TNA, and we'll call it '04 and '05. And some of my friends, I mean, I had one friend in particular, Christopher Daniels was her favorite wrestler, and it wasn't even close. And I don't mean favorite TNA wrestler. I mean just favorite wrestler. Like in that era, if you could have said, "Hey, Stone Cold could come back," or you could see a Christopher Daniels, she wouldn't hesitate. Christopher Daniels. And I think a lot of people feel that way about him. It's hard to believe. I think he wrestled his first match. I think this is right. 1992.
Wow.
I mean, so he's been doing it for a long time. And when he did get that shot in WCW, because I think there were only a handful of matches. I know that he worked some like enhancement stuff. But I think it was like worldwide in 2000, and then there was a Nitro in 2001. Oh, he did a dark match in 2000 as well.
Okay.
So Christopher Daniels versus Mikey Henderson was at the Staples Center in a dark match in 2000. Chris Candido picked up a win over Christopher Daniels in Knoxville for a worldwide taping. Kwee Wee beat Christopher Daniels in Long Beach, California in October of 2000. And then the match you're referencing was a Tuesday Nitro from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, January 22nd, 2001. It's no wonder you don't remember that one, Tony. You've described that era of WCW as a coffin on roller skates.
Yeah.
Daniels and Mike Modest, they went to a contest, 6 minutes and 56 seconds. And if memory serves, isn't this when he tried to do some sort of a springboard and gave himself a stinger or something like that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Self-inflicted injury. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, what could have been Christopher Daniels, dude. Now, of course, he's one of the more invaluable pieces of the puzzle behind the scenes with AEW, don't you think?
Oh yeah. It's Christopher Daniels is a big part of the producers / coaches. And one thing about Chris is when he is talking or going over something, he's almost as loud as Eddie Kingston. I said almost. No one's as loud as Eddie Kingston, but Chris is close. Very, very bolsterous, very strong voice that he uses, and got a lot of time for him. Really do. I'm really excited to have being able to be working with Christopher Daniels.
Daniels, of course, was one of the first wrestlers to consistently make a full-time living as an independent wrestler. When I think about guys who did that in that era, it was guys like him and Sabu. And really, Daniels was able to dust off some acting chops. I think he worked at some of the different theme parks. And whenever they had like a show or a production, you remember these where they would have like a water world show. He did a phenomenal job. And I think that's what made him so special. And I think a missed opportunity for one of the larger companies, because not only could he do the in-ring and the athleticism, he had all of that, but he could act too. And man, when you combine both of those, it's a perfect formula. In an alternate universe, let's say WCW doesn't go under. Let's say he doesn't have that fluke injury in January of 2001 and WCW continues. I could have seen Christopher Daniels being a real player in the cruiserweight division for WCW, don't you think?
Yeah, there's no question that's spot on. Christopher Daniels in the cruiserweight division, because our cruiserweights were, and I know we had some of the stars leave by the time Christopher got there, but he would have been very, very good in the cruiserweight division. He he also, something you may not know about him, he's a very, very big comic book guy. Very big. Into comic books. And I'm not talking about the movies. I mean, there's obviously been a big difference between the comic book superheroes and now the movies. Chris is really big, knows a lot about comics. He has given me a lot of comics for me to read in my spare time. And we see him in a lot of comic book t-shirts in the back as well. So
We're watching a pretty fun match here. I hope you'll join us over at WHWMonday.com. And what's interesting about this is you can see a direct line between what was happening back then and what's happening now. I'm saying this new style, the evolution of the style of wrestling was changing from a more WWF, WCW. It was a faster paced, but also more logical. And one of the things I think that has changed from back then to now, especially in Ring of Honor, and I know this isn't a Ring of Honor match, but here Joe is certainly the Ring of Honor champion. He's in the middle of his incredible run as champion. He was champ for like 2 years. But I'm saying all that to say there's more mat wrestling here, Tony, than what you would see today. Now you would see more fast-paced action, maybe some things off the ropes, off the top turnbuckle, things like that. I like this. I mean, how about just the wrist lock and then Joe headbutting the wrist? This is great stuff, man. Like it feels kind of old school, but updated, if that makes sense.
Well, I've never seen anybody headbutt a wrist, to be honest with you.
They should do it this weekend. It was badass.
Yes, it was badass. And that's one thing about Joe. Everything he does is authentic, even mat wrestling, because he's so good at it. And obviously Christopher Daniels is too. Both of them are so good at it. They make you want to watch it. They make it a good story. But again, I mean, obviously I was talking to a friend of mine this weekend from New York City who I had lost touch with. I did a search online, found him, found where he worked, who I thought it was, and I emailed their email address, and he got back in touch with me. It was the same guy. And he said, I haven't watched wrestling since WCW days. And I was telling him about AEW. And he said, yeah, I'm going to watch it. And he said, I went to this one match, was wild and crazy. It was in the 90s and they did crazy stuff. And I said, it was probably ECW. And I said, the wrestling that ECW did back in the day kind of lives on today more than what we're seeing right now.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. And so he said, yeah, that was it. ECW. He said, I took my wife and she they're killing each other. They're bleeding. And I said, well, it's one of those things where you got to really want it and love it. It's an acquired taste.
What was your friend's name?
Derek,
if you're listening, and you don't want to see blood, when it gets to Jon Moxley's match, maybe go watch 60 Minutes. Check the scores of the ball games. I don't know what's going to happen, but if you've got Jon Moxley and Darby Allin, I would think that there may or may not be some color. SaveWithConrad.com.
Yeah, I'm Justin Bruckman from Knoxville, Tennessee. What got me to Save with Conrad was the 83 Weeks podcast. I really wasn't thinking about getting rid of any debt. I just wanted to cash out some equity in the house to do remodeling. But I did both, so that was pretty awesome. Worked out great. Redid the foyer, built pantry space, and there's little odds and ends when I first bought the house that I wanted to take care of, and we were able to take care of it. So, paid off 2 cars and some credit card debt. So probably all in all, getting $30,000 in that. And then I got some $30,000 more equity out of the house, and still plenty of equity left over. So payment's good. I lowered my interest rate. I'm in a much better spot than I was. Super easy. Everybody was great. Very, very awesome people. Francis and Steve were great to work with. They're awesome. Made it for a very easy, seamless experience. I'd probably say all in all, probably $1,000 a month at least. I lowered my interest rate, especially the way the interest rates are right now, which is, that's amazing. I'm Justin Bruckman from Knoxville, Tennessee. I saved over $1,000 with SaveWithConrad.com, and I did a lot of renovations with that money as well.
NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. SaveWithConrad.com.